The Galactic Council had existed for 12,000 years. In that time, they had catalogued over 900 sentient species across the known galaxy. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had witnessed stars die and new ones born from the cosmic dust. Nothing surprised them anymore. When their long-range sensors detected the small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star, they sent an observation probe. The probe returned with footage of creatures walking on two legs, building structures from stone and metal, and launching primitive rockets into low orbit. The council members laughed. Ambassador of the Empire reviewed the data with his four eyes narrowed in amusement. The humans, as they called themselves, had only achieved within the last century of their existence. They still fought among themselves over resources and territory. Their weapons were crude chemical explosives and projectile launchers. Their shields were non-existent. Their understanding of quantum mechanics was elementary at best. "Mark them as Category 7, said dismissively. "Primitive, not worth diplomatic contact. Perhaps in another 1,000 years they will evolve enough to warrant attention." Commander of the Dominion agreed completely. His species had conquered 43 star systems with their plasma cannons and gravity weapons. They had crushed civilizations far more advanced than these humans. To him, Earth was nothing more than a curiosity, a planet full of animals playing with fire. The council filed their report and moved on to more pressing matters. There were trade disputes to settle and territorial conflicts to manage. The humans were forgotten within a single rotation of the council chamber. 5 years passed on Earth. During this time, human scientists made a discovery that would change everything. Deep within an asteroid that had drifted into their solar system, they found the wreckage of an alien spacecraft. It was ancient, possibly millions of years old, but its technology was still partially functional. Dr. Sarah led the research team that studied the wreck. She was brilliant and driven, a woman who had dedicated her life to understanding the universe. When she first activated the ship's damaged computer core, she expected to find star maps or communication logs. Instead, she found something far more valuable. The alien database contained the fundamental principles of faster-than-light travel, energy shield generation, and most importantly, the physics behind weapons that could tear apart matter at the molecular level. The information was incomplete, fragmented by time and damage, but it was enough. Within 2 years, humanity reverse-engineered the technology. They built their first warp drive in secret, testing it on the dark side of the moon where no observation probes could detect them. They constructed orbital defense platforms disguised as communication satellites. They developed weapons that made their nuclear arsenals look like children's toys. The nations of Earth, for the first time in their history, united under a single purpose. They called themselves the Terran Defense Coalition. Every resource, every brilliant mind, every factory was dedicated to preparing for what they knew was coming. Because the alien database had contained something else, something terrifying. It contained records of the Galactic Council and their treatment of primitive species. Worlds had been conquered for resources. Populations had been enslaved or exterminated. The galaxy was not a friendly place, and humanity understood that they needed to be ready. Admiral Stone was chosen to lead the Terran Defense Fleet. He was a veteran of 3 wars on Earth, a man who had seen the worst of humanity and the best. He trained his crews relentlessly, preparing them for combat against enemies they had never seen. He developed tactics that would seem insane to any traditional military strategist. "They think we are primitives," he told his officers during their final briefing. "They think we throw rocks and worship fire. Let them keep thinking that. Their arrogance will be their weakness." The attack came without warning. The Empire had decided that Earth would make an excellent mining colony. Their armada of 300 warships dropped out of hyperspace just beyond the orbit of Mars. Each ship was the length of a mountain, bristling with weapons that could crack a planet in half. Their commander, High Lord expected no resistance at all. He broadcast a message to Earth demanding immediate surrender. The humans were given one standard galactic hour to respond. After that, their cities would be reduced to ash. Admiral Stone received the message aboard his flagship, the TDS Defiance. He smiled and ordered his fleet to remain hidden behind the dark side of the moon. The orbital platforms maintained their disguise as satellites. Everything looked exactly as they expected. When the hour passed, High Lord ordered his fleet to advance. His plasma cannons charged with enough power to glass continents. His soldiers prepared their drop ships for planetary invasion. Victory was certain. Then the sky erupted with fire. The first wave of human missiles launched from hidden bases across the moon's surface. They were small and fast, nearly invisible to sensors until they were already too close to intercept. Each missile carried a warhead designed from the alien technology, capable of destabilizing the energy shields that protected ships. 47 vessels lost their shields in the first 30 seconds. Before they could recover, the Terran Defense Fleet emerged from hiding. Admiral Stone led the charge personally, his ship diving straight into the heart of the enemy formation. They had never faced an enemy that fought like this. Human ships were smaller but impossibly maneuverable. They darted between the massive alien warships, targeting their engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. Human pilots flew with a reckless courage that they could not understand. High Lord screamed orders at his captains, but chaos had consumed his fleet. His communications were jammed by human electronic warfare. His sensors were blinded by decoys and countermeasures. His ships collided with each other as they tried to maneuver in the tight formation. Admiral Stone pushed his advantage without mercy. His fleet split into hunting packs, each one targeting damaged ships and finishing them off before moving to the next. The orbital platforms finally revealed their true nature, unleashing concentrated beams of energy that cut through armor like paper. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 287 warships drifted as burning wreckage. The survivors fled into hyperspace, carrying tales of horror back to their empire. High Lord was among the dead, his flagship torn apart by a concentrated barrage from 6 human destroyers. The Galactic Council received word of the disaster within days. They refused to believe it at first. A Category 7 species defeating an armada was impossible. It went against everything they understood about the natural order of the galaxy. Commander of the Dominion saw an opportunity in the confusion. They had been rivals of his people for centuries. If they had truly been humiliated by primitives, this was the perfect moment to strike both Earth and the weakened empire. He gathered the largest armada in history, 500 warships, each one more advanced than anything they had possessed. His flagship was the Devastator, a vessel so massive it had its own internal atmosphere and artificial gravity. Its main weapon could crack a moon in half with a single shot. Did not underestimate the humans as they had. He studied the reports from the battle carefully. He analyzed human tactics and designed countermeasures. He trained his crews specifically to deal with small, fast targets. He was confident that he had accounted for every variable. Admiral Stone knew they were coming. Human intelligence networks had spread across the galaxy in the months since the first battle. They had contacts on a dozen worlds, former slaves and resistance fighters who hated the Council and everything it represented. Information flowed to Earth like water. This time, Stone did not wait for the enemy to come to him. He took his fleet to meet them in deep space, far from any inhabited world. He chose a region of space filled with dense asteroid fields and unstable gravitational currents. It was a nightmare for large ships but perfect for human vessels. Was surprised to find the humans waiting for him. He had expected to catch them defending there. Instead, they had come out to fight in the darkness between stars. It was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. The commander ordered his fleet to attack in standard formation. His ships advanced in perfect lines, their weapons charging for a devastating first strike. They would crush the humans quickly and then continue to Earth for conquest. The humans vanished. One moment the Terran fleet was visible on sensors. The next they were gone, roared in confusion, demanding answers from his officers. Before anyone could respond, the first explosions rocked his formation. Human ships appeared from nowhere, striking from inside the asteroid field. They had hidden themselves among the rocks, their engines cold and silent until the perfect moment. Now they attacked with the fury of a species that had been dismissed and underestimated. Stone had learned from the first battle. His tactics had evolved, become more refined and more deadly. Human ships worked in perfect coordination, their attacks synchronized down to the microsecond. They targeted the massive vessels at their most vulnerable points, the joints between hull sections and the cooling vents for their reactors. Tried to adapt, but the battlefield was chaos. Asteroids tumbled through his formation, forced into motion by human ships that used them as cover and weapons. His sensors showed enemy contacts everywhere, though he could not tell which were real ships and which were decoys. The Devastator fired its main weapon at a cluster of human vessels. The beam that could crack a moon struck nothing but empty space and scattered debris. The humans had anticipated the shot and moved before it was even fired. Stone personally led the assault on the flagship. His ship, now in battle-worn, dove through a storm of defensive fire to reach its target. Human boarding parties launched across the void, magnetic boots clamping onto the Devastator's hull. They cut their way inside with plasma torches and fought through corridors filled with enemy soldiers. Died on the bridge of his own ship, killed by a human Marine who was half his size. The Marine, Sergeant, stood over his body and broadcast a message on all frequencies. "This is Sergeant of the Terran Defense Coalition. Your commander is dead. Your fleet is destroyed. Surrender now or join him." 372 ships were destroyed that day. The remainder, barely 100 vessels, surrendered rather than face annihilation. It was the first time in history that their warriors had chosen surrender over death. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. The chamber that had laughed at humanity just 7 years ago now trembled with fear. Two of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy had been crushed by a species they had classified as primitive. Humanity did not wait for the Council to decide their fate. Ambassador James walked into the Council chamber, escorted by an honor guard of Terran Marines. He carried no weapons and made no threats. He simply placed a data chip on the central podium and activated it. The chip contained a message for every member species of the Council. It offered peace and trade to any who wanted it. It promised protection to any who had suffered under Council rule, and it delivered a warning to any who thought of threatening Earth again. The galaxy had a new power. They were called primitive once. Now they were feared, and this was only the beginning.